We will start with a roll call and conflict of interest check. Trustee Nolte,
Here and none.
trustee Abbott,
Here, none.
treasurer Metz,
Here, none.
clerk Sambuelis,
Here, none.
trustee Sanders,
Here, none.
trustee Sakinga,
None. And here.
and supervisor Scott, here and none. We'll now move to approval of the agenda.
Can I ask a question on conflict of interest? I'm just curious, does everybody vote even if their family is affected by the budget questions that are up?
I think what we had established as rules is it's sort of a self-determination
Okay,
on those individual votes.
I just wondered about it because
And
we've talked about that before. I mean,
Yep.
people have abstained before.
And we will do so there are two different meetings. This budget hearing will go through everything. We actually won't be taking action on passage. So those votes would actually take place in the Board of Trustees meeting.
Okay,
And there will be another roll call and conflict of interest check there.
okay, thanks.
Lonnie, can I just say that I think it's actually in statute that conflict of interest is, I don't think we set that policy. I think it's set for us at a different level of government. Like, I don't think we
That it's
can,
volunteer, that it's
I
self.
don't think we can require elected officials I don't think we have the authority to require people to recuse themselves from votes, unfortunately.
I was just curious, I was just questioning it. I'm not saying we should make a statement about it. I just remember that there have been not many, but a few meetings where people have recused themselves based on closeness to the issue.
Okay. We're into approval of the agenda. Any additions, deletions, comments about the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. We'll now move, any discussion on approval of the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move into a vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The agenda is approved. We'll now move into our first call for public comment. Is there anyone wishing to comment? Please come on up to the microphone. I'll preempt Janice by asking you to make sure that it's on. If there's an on button on the side there. No, we usually hide the on button too, just to make people search for it. There we go.
Hello.
Thank
Good
you.
evening. My name is Rick Monier, 13511 Island Lake Road. I came here to just say a few comments, but the one I've got is, I think we should remove the sheriff department since we have state police doing the same job without additional costs to the township. Return the monies to the people or use it to repair the roads that pave our gravel roads. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to comment? All right, hearing none, we'll move into the next item on our agenda, which is presentations. And we have our former trustee, now Washtenaw County Water Resource Commissioner.
So thank you for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself as your Washtenaw County Water Resources Commissioner. I'm going around the county. I know y'all I was on that side last year, but I do have a new cell phone number that I'd like to share with everybody. 734-395-7329 is my work cell. If you have any questions regarding our department, we have a great website.
Can you say it again, Gretchen?
Yeah, sure. It's 734-395-7329. So just really brief, I did want to do a quick overview of the department. I'd be happy to come back, and we have a water 101. Like, there's all sorts of things that we could provide education wise, and I look forward to working with you on that side. But I know, CEO is working with a single hauler. So we have recycle household waste is one of our programs. We do rain gardens, so environmental, like the whole goal is to keep our water as clean as possible by keeping toxins out of the water and the drain is a primary purpose of state legislative. But the number one contaminant of our freshwater is soil erosion. So we do soil erosion permits in certain communities. And we also do stormwater infrastructure engineering for new subdivisions. So I'm going to talk about that in the future. But for now, primarily, I'm here tonight to talk about the dam because I know some of you were at that meeting a couple of weeks ago. For Portage and Baseline Lake, that there's a dam that needs to be repaired. We had a public hearing in February 6th, I think, or 5th, up in Livingston County. The district is 2 counties, and so it was up there. We finished the assessment role and also the financing notice, and our county approved it March 5th. So Livingston County's doing their final approval next Monday. And ideally, we will have approval on both counties, and then we will go for the bond. You know, we're using the full faith of the counties, and then it'll be paid back over special assessment over time, over 8 years. There is on our website under projects, there is a specific tab for the dam and all the information around it with, you know, backup information, the assessment roll that will tell parcel owners what they would owe. Everybody should have gotten a mailing. The details is back in the fall. So we're hoping that everybody got the information, but the assessment won't actually happen until the winter bill. And that's also on the website. So I urge folks to look at the website. There's a lot of information there. And I look forward to looking at your service and the rest of the communities across Washington County. So that's why I'm here to say hello, not to make the meeting go really long. So thank you for giving me opportunity. Now I'm gonna go to Webster and tell them about it. And then I guess Highland has already started, right?
Huh?
March 14th, I just looked it up.
I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I just looked it up because I figured somebody would have.
Oh,
Since that affects us.
what's the bond amount?
2.1 million.
2.1?
And there's some contingency in there, so there should be. And basically, the project should be done for sure by the end of the year. We're hoping the fall, but the gates have to be built, and, you know, there's a lot of crazy
Engineering.
out there right now. So we have to build, we have the contract under, we have a contractor that's already been approved, that's ready to go. It's just at this point, we need to get the financing approved by Livingston County. And then there's a 15-day window for protest, but I don't expect that, at least in Washington, we shouldn't have it. So thank you for your time tonight, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Hi,
Thank you,
Gretchen.
All right, we'll now move into the next item on our agenda, which is reports. We have the report from the Compensation Committee. That is in your packet. Unfortunately, the member of the Compensation Committee that had volunteered to be here tonight, Regina Hamlet, let us know that she was unable to attend. But Sam, our office administrator, is also the recording secretary for the committee. So if there are any questions, Sam may be able to answer them for us. As a reminder to everyone, several years ago, the board set up an arm's length committee for compensation review for elected officials. So we have very little to do with any of this. Really, the only actions that could take place would be to reject the actual recommendation. There's no passage or acceptance necessary.
But I thought that the compensation committee only met every other year. And they met last year and gave a larger increase last year because it was supposed to be for 2 years.
They met the statute says that they meet in odd numbered years.
Oh, okay.
And that the recommendation takes effect at the fiscal year start of the even number years.
Okay.
So what happened is when it was first established, it was very late.
Okay.
They met, I believe, in October of 23.
Okay. Yes.
And then it started it would have been should have been April of 24 for that budget. It should have been the fiscal year 24 budget, but because we are off by fiscal years,
I see.
it is, the first year was late. So this gets us back on the normal odd year, even year budget cycle.
Thank you.
And just so that is governed by state statute. That is not our, again, like we talked about earlier, that's not something that we chose as a township. If you set up these committees, it's governed by the state statute. Any questions about the report? And I will say, so this is a 2-year, this is a smaller increase than previously. And this is a 2-year cycle. So they will not meet again until 2027. And that will be for the fiscal year 2028 budget. All right, hearing no questions, we'll move into budget discussion. Seeing as how we've already gone through the budget several times, line by line, the way that I'd like to approach this tonight is we will go to each section. So operating budget requests, then capital, then general appropriations act, if we want to talk about the resolution. And what I'll do as we get to each section is I'm just going to go around the table, call on every member to say anything they would like to say about those pieces, and then we'll move to the next item. Or if there's any motions or changes, you can feel free to do that as you bring up in your discussion. So we'll move into budget discussion, starting first with the operating budget requests. I have a couple of other announcements as we do that. There is a lot of supplemental material in front of you today. That is because we found a couple of errors that we needed to make changes to. The majority of those we'll talk about in the next portion because it really is about the resolution. So we'll get to that in the next section, but you do have updated budget numbers in front of you as well as part of the packet. So when I call on you, if you have any questions, just let us know what page you're looking at. All right, so we will, I'm just going to start at the end of the table. Trustee Sakinga.
Dang, you're starting with me. Well, I did read the minutes and kind of try to familiarize myself with the discussion because I think everybody knows I wasn't present at the February meeting. And I think big picture, I'm very pleased that we're picking up all the policy matters that we picked up and discussed all the policy matters that I put forward, so I was touched and pleased to see that. So thank you, Lonnie, and thank you to the board for following up on all those items. I know that the biggest operating budget increase is for the deputy treasurer and the deputy clerk. And I think that was a significant topic of discussion last time. Seems like everybody registered discomfort with the personal relationships that are present right now with the marriage, with the spouses being in those deputy roles. I share that, and I think everybody knows that I share that discomfort. I am not sure how that should be. Well, and I do also want to add that having worked in the office with Nick, and I see that Nick is here, that I really appreciate Nick's sense of ethics, sense of community mindedness, his hard work. And I want to thank Nick for his service. And then with respect to the deputy treasurer, Maris does a great job. We saw that she was able to do the treasurer job without a deputy. I question whether we need to have the deputy treasurer at 24 hours unless I know that the treasurer role is much more narrowly defined and simpler than the clerk role. So it's not as clear to me that we need a deputy treasurer other than for the to meet the statutory requirements. So I'm going to share that question with everybody. I know that Maris maybe this isn't her dream job and she would like to move on to something else. And I guess I'd like to see, if we do need a deputy, I'd like to see that position advertised. But I'm not sure that that's a budgetary matter. I don't know whether that needs to be taken up in the budget. And I think everybody has said that. So I don't know that any action needs to be taken on that, but I just felt like I wanted to weigh in on that. express my support for the sentiments that came up at the last meeting. And otherwise, I support everything. And one more, we're going to talk about the Capitol in a minute.
Great. Trustee Sanders.
Well, I've been really kind of grappling with this since our last meeting, and I have thoughts that I want to read because I don't like to get tongue-tied, and just for clarity, because it's kind of a complex matter, because it's, our budget as well as our kind of ethics are on the table. So this is what I am thinking presently. It doesn't mean it can't change, but so first, I want to separate the clerk's and the treasurer's office in my comments. Okay, so regarding the clerk's office, I think Clerk Stamboullis has described several times publicly the circumstances and factors involved in her hiring her spouse as her deputy. And she was in a vulnerable situation. It was urgent, and she needed that accommodation at the time. And there's no need for the clerk to further defend that position. So I don't want her to feel that way. Even though I don't really like spouses working in the same government office, I accept this. And I know that we're not perfect, and the clerk's office is really busy, and we should provide it with reasonable funding. And I know that, the deputy clerk has stepped up and been a really important help. I feel differently about the treasurer's request for full funding for his deputy. Although we all endorsed a conflict of interest policy at the beginning of our last term that dissuades hiring spouses, the treasurer and his deputy have pursued this arrangement, I believe, intentionally and without transparency. Although he ran unopposed, there was no disclosure to the public that Treasurer Metz intended to hire his spouse as his deputy at $40,320 a year for 24 hours a week. And the voters let us know that how they felt about spousal pairs, at least on our board, by voting for only one of the Metzes to serve. Also last year, Treasurer Maris Metz, who is now the deputy, was able to accomplish the treasurer's tasks on her own without the help of a deputy. However, now they're asking for full hours and salaries for both positions. It just feels wrong to me, and it feels deceptive. I'm not saying it is, it feels that way to me, and I really just don't want to fund it. So I believe that both the treasurer and his deputy are highly competent people who can work really efficiently. I think it's fair to fund the deputy treasurer for 8 hours per week so she can train her spouse to do the job, and that her commitment to this position should be temporary, as she originally voiced was her intention. Having two married couples over our executive office presents vulnerabilities to our township, which we've discussed in the past. I think this should be avoided whenever possible. So that's where I'm at right now.
Thank you. Clerk Samuelis.
Okay, so I wish to not continue to defend my choice of deputy. My choice of deputy is my choice of deputy per state law. I've given my reasonings to my board as well as my community on multiple occasions. And while I appreciate possibly the majority of the board's perspective, I just feel very strongly that, both of these roles are given protections for a reason. And like I said, I'm not here to justify myself. I'm performing the job. I'm here most every day. My deputy, well, correct, he is my spouse. We are very comfortable working together. We have a very good working relationship, and we are productive and here to serve our community. So that's pretty much all I have to say on this issue.
Treasurer Metz.
So while we've discussed this before, the conflict of interest policy that the board had passed does not pertain to appointed positions. Like, Clerk Stambuella said, there's state protections for, the appointment of a deputy. In choosing my deputy, I chose somebody that knew the job, knew the new software, actually implemented using all the new software in the office, implemented the investment policy, and is the best person for the job. And I had asked around. Okay, it's not like I didn't ask people to serve. I did, and they all declined. At the 24 hours per week, to get somebody that has that type of background, it is a huge pay cut for them. In the sense that my deputy is qualified, but also highly efficient. And it sounds like the board wants to, or at least part of the board that I've heard from so far, it sounds like the board wants to punish my office for its efficiency. So then you cut the number of hours down to 8 hours is the number you said? I'm just
That's the
curious.
number I said.
Yeah, I'm just curious if you could clarify how you came up with that number and how many times have you been in the treasurer's office seeing what goes on a daily basis?
I just can't, first of all, that number is flexible to me, but,
Okay.
but the point is that I think that we should help Maris or Deputy Metz train you. And then I think that it's been clear that we don't necessarily need a 24-hour deputy, and you're both competent and smart. So I know you can do the job probably as efficiently as Maris.
So again, what you're saying is because of our efficiency in our office, in times of need, like during rolling out the tax rolls, we're gonna cut that number of hours and then put stress in our office to be able to actually get that done based on this arbitrary number that you picked.
Well, I
And
can
I
see
also,
your
I
perspective.
also still have my question on the table is how many times have you been in the treasurer's office seeing what goes on a daily basis? and
Can
how
I,
you-
I'm
can I,
not.
how do
can
people
I make a
Hold on.
point? Can I make
but I
a
can-
point?
Hold on one second.
Can I make
We're-
a point of order? I think that what I heard the supervisor say is that we are not discussing it. We've already had this discussion. We're going down the line and each person is saying their piece, and then we're going on to the next person. We are not to engage in an argument. The last meeting lasted 3 hours. I think we all know each other's perspectives. This is your opportunity to say it one more time, and then we move on. We're not going to sit here and argue. I don't want to hear it.
Well, I think I just want to clarify, we are going to move through. I do want to limit any of the crosstalk technically through Robert's Rules of Order. All of the comments should be directed at the chair, not at each other. That helps limit any of the crosstalk at the table. And we'll let everyone share their perspective. If there is a motion or anything like when we get to that, we will open up for discussion. But I do agree, we want to keep this civil and moving along. Let everyone, I've always said, and this has been since I started as supervisor, I want to make sure everyone is heard and give everyone their perspective. But I agree, we don't want to rehash for several hours the things that we've already talked about multiple times. But I do want to make sure everyone's heard. So Treasurer Metz, it's your time.
All right, so I guess I'll just go back and repeat part of what I said and
It's okay.
like I
It's
said,
okay, Brad.
so in appointing a deputy, which is controlled by, there's laws there by the state, that the individual that is appointed serves at the pleasure of that office, whether it's the clerk or the treasurer. Like I previously said, I had asked around for people that I felt comfortable with, that I trusted, that I felt could do the job. None of them were interested in doing the job. So then I asked My current deputy, who is fully qualified, like I said, is probably the most qualified person to be in that office as a deputy of anybody that I even asked. And in terms of the number of hours, I'm still being trained by the deputy, the former treasurer, to be able to do the job. I have learned aspects of the job, but I certainly don't know the whole job, okay, by any stretch. And even my deputy would sit up here and say, or stand out there and say that she still learns new stuff every single day that she's in the office. There's always something that comes up. And, you know, coming in after a tax roll has already been set up and the, you know, the tax bills have been sent out, I haven't even seen a tax roll yet, right? To be able to learn how to set up and be able to print the taxes to get them sent out. And the summer tax roll is very different than the winter tax roll, because the summer tax roll is, you know, you're only collecting very little versus what the one in the winter is. So there's at least 2 tax rolls that I'm going to have to see for the first time to be able to actually learn how to do both of those. And in terms of training during that time is going to be, you know, hours of training. So again, yes, I have somebody that's very efficient that can train me to do it. I know that we can do it. But in terms of the number of hours, just because in a certain week or 2-week period, you know, hours are short, we're not taking a look at the times when it's going to be needed. My deputy doesn't want to be here any longer than she has to. And she's made that perfectly clear to every single one of you.
Trustee Abbott.
Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, one second.
Go ahead.
Maybe she didn't make that clear to you, but to the rest of the people that were around, I don't know if you had heard that from her too. So I don't want to speak from my deputy that she doesn't want to be here any longer than she has to be.
And I have heard. that.
Okay, all right. I didn't know
I
you
have
had it. I didn't want to speak out of turn. and-
So, yeah, I have heard that.
Okay,
And I'm just gonna tell you, I will never dispute that you didn't hire a qualified candidate as your deputy. What concerns me is, I wanted to talk about the clerk first, but what concerns me, since we'll do the deputy treasurer, is that we went 18 months without a deputy. In addition to that, when asked how many hours you put in an average week, you said, I don't know. That bothered me. I walked away from that meeting wondering, is the deputy doing the job that we're also paying you to do? And I agree with training. You've been in the job 4 months, and I'm sure there's more for you to learn. My proposal would be that we do 16 hours for the deputy treasurer. But I would like more than 24 hours for the deputy clerk, because I come in this office pretty frequently and he's always working. And when the last board took away his pay, he proved his commitment to the residents by coming in and working with no pay. So at least he's here, he's committed, and I know that our deputy treasurer is committed. But I don't know that we need to pay a deputy treasurer for 24 hours a week. And we would not be a good fiduciaries by committing to something that has been proven by her own needs. And serving at the pleasure of the treasurer doesn't mean she just gets a paycheck so you don't have to work. I want to know that you're in here, and I don't even know if you are. So back to the clerk. That's all I have to say on the deputy treasurer. But back to the clerk, I feel that he's here. I see him here, he's working, and I've seen the deputy treasurer here working, and yes, she has said to me that she's only here until everything's up to snuff. I don't remember what her exact verbiage is. But, you know, I would like to not increase the hours overall. What I'd like to do is take some of the hours and move them to the deputy clerk, thereby reducing a few hours for the treasurer, and I think that 16 hours is a reasonable amount of hours for your treasurer, for your deputy. And is this all we're talking about? The only issue that we're talking about?
Anything in the operating budget?
Okay, well, yeah, I'm sorry. The other is so contentious, it's hard to stay on, So with the Dexter Senior Center, they came in and asked for $15,000. And Chelsea asked for 45 and the Wave asked for 19. Is that 9,000 for the senior center what we agreed upon, what we talked about in the February meeting? Because I can't remember what we actually had there.
Yeah, that was the amount that we had agreed upon because 9,000 is what they actually said in the meeting that we were giving them 9,000 this year. That was incorrect. We had approved 4,000. We had approved the previous year 4,000 plus a $5,000 ARPA
Okay.
spent one-time funds. So you'll see in the check run in our regular meeting that we sent them the 4,000 for this year, but we did agree to the 9. It was stated at the time that it was 9 because that's what we had done this year, but that's incorrect. So we agreed to the 9. They did ask for 15.
And we couldn't give Wave that extra $1,000 and tell them to do more advertising?
We certainly could.
Okay.
I just put in the numbers that the board said they wanted during the meeting.
No, I
So-
understand. But those were things I wanted to ask, but I
Yeah.
didn't realize the other stuff was gonna suck all that oxygen out of the room.
No, we should, that's what this is for, the entire budget before we get to the actual approval. So any of those issues should come now as well.
I think those are, so, yeah, I think those are pretty much my concerns.
All right, trustee Nolte.
Hi. So I, as the rest of the board, do have concerns with the deputy treasurer's position. And I think I have a little bit of a different idea, is to fund not based on hours per week, but fund on a dollar value for the year. And how you choose to use those hours, whether it's heavy during tax season and light during non-tax season, that's up to the discretion of the treasurer's office. But I would propose that we fund the deputy treasurer $15,000. And how you choose to disperse that through the year is how you choose to disperse it. I also don't agree with having spouses in the same department. And while you have the full right to appoint at your pleasure who you want, we also have the obligation to financially control the township and see how those dollars are spent. And I don't think anybody here has brought up exactly what Kim is doing for the treasurer's office. What is her role in this? She's functioning in this office now. She's not functioning very much to the clerk's office, as my understanding, but is doing more towards the treasurer's office. And that's something we fund that. I don't know, what do we pay her? 1,500, 2,000, I'm not sure what we pay Kim.
Send a check disbursement every month, 2,100.
$2,100 for the month. So on top of the 15,000 I propose, if she's doing that, there's another $24,000 a year. All these little thousands just keep adding up. And our payroll is swelling. And I think that the deputy treasurer, when she was treasurer, she set the precedent of not needing a deputy. That was her choice. She set that role. Her brother worked very limited, but we see by the budget, it was roughly $5,000 for that year, if you look for actual. So I would propose that we just fund it $15,000 for the year, and how you choose to use those dollars during that hours, that's it, but it's capped off. Yeah. And then you can eliminate stress as you want, and she is qualified, but doesn't mean we have to go from 40,000 to 85,000 for a department, plus 2,000, plus another 24,000 for Kim's work. So I think that should take some serious considerations of what she's doing. That's my big thing on there. I think the clerk, on the deputy clerk, we're already bumping up to 24. Was that 24? I think adding another 8, that's 12 more hours a week. That's a lot. I would like to do it increments, and that's just how I understand where you're going with it, Alicia, but I think incremental, that we should do 4, see how it works out, and then evaluate from there. That's just my thing. And then my other question is on the cemetery. The cemetery is budgeted for $10,000. Is that for maintenance, or is that maintenance and the work that we're doing over there? Is that both things, or does the maintenance for the cemetery go into lawn care? Does anybody know?
I use the actuals to set, anyway, we're not supposed to exchange, but the short answer is no, I don't know. I'd have to look at the.
If you're asking it what we've spent, the maintenance for the mowing, that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
I believe has gone under building and grounds maintenance. That's
Okay.
because it comes as one, I may be incorrect. But it's same thing with the fire
So
station.
Lawn service is in cemetery.
Correct. No, it's under maintenance and building and grounds.
Oh, so that 10,000 is just to rebuild the cemeteries? Is that what we're talking? Is
Yeah,
that
the other
what that's
maintenance.
for?
Yes.
So that may be why the building and ground lawn maintenance went over and
Yeah.
the cemetery went under.
Yeah, because I don't think the 10,000 was supposed to be all.
Yeah.
Like, we just don't need $10,000. I'm
Okay.
just saying, if that is just for the work we're doing on the cemeteries, we don't need $10,000.
Okay.
It's just not that expensive. But if it includes the lawn care, which is another question that I have in the budget, that I'll bring up now since I'm talking about cemetery. Been working on it for over 2 years. And I know I read somewhere in the packet, it was in Sam's review, that the bids will be going out. I am strongly against using weed whippers in the cemetery. Strongly against it. We've seen the damage, we've repaired the damage. I know we don't want to use a lot of chemicals, but the small amount of chemicals we could use around the headstones would save our headstones. They're 180 years old. And the more we can do, or we want to have somebody hand weed it, which I just can't imagine finding somebody that wants to hand weed the cemeteries. But the weed whacking, we've seen the damage. We're over there fixing the damage of this stuff.
We did ask for in the RFP this time, we did ask for a section for them to describe specifically the care around the cemeteries, with a section asking basically that question, so that when we evaluate those RFPs, we will know what the intent is. Because we know that was a concern last time.
But we can
I
reduce
think,
that number.
Karen, I think that we put in the OHM imaging.
Oh,
of the
that was,
correct-
yeah, that's
yes.
part of it. That was only 3,000.
Is that done?
No,
It was two.
we're not ready. to go.
It was 2,000. We removed it from the, you'll see actually in our main packet, OHM, we removed it from OHM's contract for
Mhm.
now, knowing that if we want it, because we weren't sure if we were
Yeah.
going to go back to it. But it was an additional 2,000 for them to map it.
Yeah, we're not ready. I mean, last
Yeah.
fall, we just found maybe 6 or 7 more headstones we dug up, and they have to be replaced. We have no, we're not ready. It's an easy answer. But I just, if that's 2,000, I mean, we could probably get away with 5,000 if it's no lawn care or anything. Because that cemetery is probably 90% done, and then 4 Mile doesn't have as much major work as this one.
All right. So does everyone feel like we've gotten through the general budget items? Are there other?
Are you done?
No, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I forgot. I turned my
You
page,
took a breath and I just moved right along. I'm so sorry.
page and saw a note. That, and I know this is outside of the realm, and it's not that I'm against it, but I really do think we have to do something with WAVE. If we're paying $18,000, I'm all for the infrastructure, I'm all for supporting the project, but we're paying $18,000 for 10 riders. I think we better get on the stick and do some PR or ask them to, or something, because I just can't in good faith say to our voters, oh, we're spending $18,000 for 10 riders. But I support the program,
Yeah,
you know?
I just think that people don't understand
Probably
what it
should.
is.
Well, we had a presentation from, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. We had a presentation from the senior center last month. I think they did a fantastic job. And they also do not have an operating budget, which is why they came with a $15,000 proposal. Last month, I did inquire to Jason Maciejewski what the senior center millage or hopefully the older person's millage that did pass. Because I was really on the fence, not going up to their 15,000, but I was very appreciative that the board considered the 9,000. My findings were that there should be around 200,000 that will come into or allocated for the Dexter Senior Center, where they need around 360,000, give or take. So I would like to propose to the board to make it a clean $10,000 if possible. I've just been really thinking about this. It's been weighing on my mind. I do appreciate the board bumping it up to the 9,000, but a nice, even, clean number, I just would feel better about.
You can have it from the cemetery.
Well, hold on. All right. Does anyone have any other items like that? Because what we're gonna do next is I will ask if there are any motions for operating budget requests for any changes. What I'd like to do is we will decide those things here. We'll take a quick recess in between meetings and change any of the resolution or those things that we need to, so that we have those documents for the actual meeting for passage later. So if we vote on those changes here, then we will roll those right into final approval at the next meeting, if everyone's okay with that. All right, so the first, and I guess before we do that, I didn't give any comments. Mine are probably going to be less exciting, but it's some updates from our last meeting. We had a discussion about the Sun Times and whether or not we were going to continue to post over and above the Open Meetings Act. I was asked at the time to get information. I did reach out. Doug Marin let me know that right now they don't mail specifically to Dexter Township. So the mailings go to Chelsea and Dexter addresses. There may be a few mixed in within the township that get it, but that's primarily their service area. I've asked if there's a way to find out those kind of exact numbers so we can then figure out exactly how many residents are getting it or not getting it. And we're still working on that. But it is Dexter and Chelsea mailing addresses seems to be the folks that are getting it, which explains why you're not getting it in Gregory.
Say, Chuck, we had those, that we talked to them offsite, we
Yeah.
had how much it would cost, because
Yeah.
I guess I asked him how much it would cost for us to get every Dexter Township resident a copy.
For everyone to
It
get
was
paper.
expensive.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure.
Last summer as
Did
well.
ya?
Yeah, because I wanted to understand why
What
some
we
of
do.
our township residents weren't getting that, and
Yeah.
he again rattled off some dollar amounts, but like I said, it was last summer. So
Yeah,
it's like,
it would also be difficult, I would think, just because they have different zones.
Yeah.
And so like the paper that folks in the Dexter zip code gets is different than it's not all of it is different, but there are different pieces of it. So my paper is different than the one that we actually get here.
it'll say- Like
yeah.
yours says
Yeah.
Chelsea,
Yeah.
I'll say Dexter.
Right. So I just wanted to make sure we had mentioned that. I think as far as the other issues that we've discussed, I don't think there's anything new for me to say than what I said at the last meeting. I think I think there have been good points raised for all of us to consider as we go through the budget process. And I don't want to belabor, by repeating things that were said at our last meeting. But overall, I think the budget, I do want to say the budget is in good shape, even with the changes that we've made so far. We are still coming in with our operating expenses at a good level, even with the things like the compensation committee changes. We're going to talk about them later, but the changes to healthcare for our full-time staff members, all of those things are in a great place fiscally. And so I appreciate everyone, diving in on this first budget as my first budget as supervisor, really giving all the feedback, the back and forth. I feel like it's been a very collaborative effort. And again, I know I did this when we first started this process, but a thanks to Karen as well for leaving it in such good shape to start out. So it really left us with a great starting point. All right. We will go into general operating budget requests. So anything within the operating budget, any motions for changes to these items. And again, if we make changes here now, I'm going to have to change a couple of things before our meeting, just so that we have the accurate numbers for our resolution. Trustee Nolte.
It's gonna make a motion, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that I think Alicia had a great idea that we take $1,000 from the wave and toss it up to Dexter. So we do 17,000 and 10,000 and give wave a year to see what they can do for us. Is it our job to promote wave or is it their job to help us promote wave? I'm not sure.
But is your motion based taking it from the 18,000 or
Yes.
taking it from the 19,000?
Taking it from the 18,000 to 17,000 and taking the 9,000 on the Dexter Senior up to 10,000.
Okay.
And then on the cemetery, if we want to keep OHM in there, I think $5,000 to $6,000 would be fine to finish off the cemetery project for this
Pick it,
year.
Karen.
Huh?
What is it? What do you can't say
Well,
5 to
I'll-
6.
Yeah, if you're making a motion, I need numbers.
I'm going to say $6,000 for the motion because I need to check out heavier on 4 Mile. I know there's a couple that have fallen that might need some heavy lifting. And then as far as the deputy treasurer, I would suggest that we fund the office and leave the hours open and just fund it and using my simple math, it's at 13,500. And then the treasurer's office can decide how to utilize those hours as they deem fit during high tax season or low tax season.
All right. Actually, we need is there a second?
So all those motions are in one?
That was all in one motion.
4 changes.
So it's, 4 changes.
You want to restate?
Yep,
that?
I'll restate it. So the motion was to reduce the wave commitment from 17,000 or from 18,000 to 17,000, to increase the Dexter Senior Citizen line to 10,000, to reduce the cemetery maintenance line to 6,000, and to reduce the deputy treasurer wages line to 13,500, and also remove the hour threshold. That's the current motion. Is there a second?
I'll
Mine-
second it.
All right. So it was moved by Nolte, seconded by Sanders. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to say something. So I just want everyone to understand that what this means is that we're reducing in the Appropriations Act, we will reduce the operating expenses by $30,820, which is the net effect of those. And that's the bottom line of what we're doing. Because of our change from a line item budget to an activity-based or an outcome-based budget. So this discussion is useful for communicating the board's preferences, but ultimately, all this means is that we're reducing the operating budget by 30,820.
Does everyone understands what she means?
I
We
do.
don't budget at the line item.
I do.
Other discussion?
I would really like for us to consider more than 24 hours for the deputy clerk. Maybe we need to do that pending, a work study to see, how many hours he needs. But I do believe that he works more than 24 hours a week and just doesn't get paid for it.
I think you'll have an opportunity to make a motion to that effect.
Oh,
After
okay.
we vote on this.
All right, well,
I mean, that.
It feels
okay,
like,
thank-
I was gonna say, that feels like a different issue to me.
okay.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I guess, talk about this a little bit. I, again, don't see how during tax rolls, putting out taxes, collecting the taxes during those busy times, that we are going to be able to function in our office fully and efficiently at that number that you pulled from somewhere. I just don't see it. No, if we want to go back to a number of hours and we use those number of hours as we see fit, that's fine too. Although even at the 24 hours, just because it's budgeted, doesn't mean that my deputy's here. But on those weeks that they may be needed, they're there in case. If we take a look at the last paychecks that my deputy has received, the highest paycheck that my deputy has received was over the Christmas holiday due to PTO. Just throwing it out there. That's her highest paycheck, is because all of the paid time off during the holiday. That's her highest paycheck.
So the PTO.
Hold
is
on,
a
hold on. Raise your
valid-
trust. I got trustee Nolte next.
I didn't pull the number out of the air. The number is based on a salary, times 8 hours a week. So if we want to put it down to, I use Laura's 8 hours times the salary times 52 weeks, and that comes out to 13,500. That's where it's not a arbitrary number to be pulled out of. And you can see I think in the reports today, her payroll was for 21 hours last week. So that's just 3 hours shorter.
Trustee Sakinga.
Just can't understand the I mean, that's a digression, but we should make a mental note to look at the PTO that's being earned, because you shouldn't earn more from PTO than you do from your time worked, because PTO should be allocated on a pro rata basis based on your hours. It shouldn't be a fixed amount regardless of how many, so hopefully Matt, who worked very little, should have gotten almost no PTO. Right.
Which was correct. And her first month, it was calculated properly, and it was just a 6 hours. So it wasn't, and it was during winter tax roll.
And I don't,
that
I,
she earned those
Yeah, but that's a
PTO hours.
digression.
yeah, I think PTO was it was, we have paid holiday time during
I
the
see.
holidays. Yeah,
So that was.
Oh,
regarding
I see.
different than different than PTO.
So
Is-
I agree
yes.
with that with PTO
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah, the PTO is double checked and correct. And we went through it for that December meeting, so I know that it was triple checked.
Yes.
Any other discussion?
Again, I'll go back to the 8 hours a week will not allow the treasurer's office to function as efficiently as it has in the past. It will put a stress on the treasurer's office. And if the goal here is to not have the treasurer's office work as efficiently as it has been by putting undue stress on it, then this is exactly what you're doing.
Can I ask a question?
I,
Hold on.
Sorry,
Yep.
didn't mean to
that's all right. Now, if we do look at the number of hours that my deputy has worked, okay, we have, over this, this very short period of time, we're averaging about, in the office, my deputy's averaging about 12 hours a week.
But isn't.
Hold on.
Um,
I got you on the list. I still want to,
So it's about 12 hours a week. That's about where it's sitting right now. And again, that's the end of a tax cycle. It's not, it's not rolling out a tax roll. It's not rolling out the summer tax roll, the winter tax roll, training me how to do it. So I'm still confused as to, yeah, we can say, oh, it's this number of hours, and so we're gonna fund it at that amount, use the hours as you want. That's how really it currently is. There's 24 hours allotted, and whether you use them or not, that's the whole point. In times of need, it's there. My deputy has not hit that number yet. And we were at the closing down of the winter tax collection. And this is, fairly, besides what the former board did to the deputy clerk, still pretty unprecedented.
Trustee Abbott.
Have you established set office hours for yourself? Like we know what days of the week and what times the clerk is here. We know what days of the week and what times the supervisor is here. But do we know what days of the week and what times you're here?
I can send those out if you'd like.
No, I'd like you don't know them?
So, yeah, I know.
Okay, so can you just say them for the public so that
Sure.
what are your hours?
So, Mondays and Wednesdays,
Okay,
I can be here almost the whole day before closing, if need be.
what does that mean? I can be here. Are these hours? I want to
Well,
know what
that's-
hours you've already established, like you've been in the job 4 months. Have you not established that office hours?
I don't have set hours like that, no.
Okay,
But I have the ability to be here Monday and Wednesday.
Okay.
Almost all day long, up until just a little bit before we close. On Tuesdays, I'm here in the afternoon, usually by 2:30. Thursdays, based on this being a part-time job, I am at my other job all day. And I can always be here on Fridays if a resident reaches out and wants to have an individual meeting.
yeah, I just wanted to know because I would feel better if I knew you were actually there doing the job.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to make sure of.
I understand that. And again, I'm trying to learn the job to the best of my ability based on, what's already been done. So when the winter tax roll has already been, set up, sent out, it's okay. How do we bring these taxes in? How are they receipted? Where do they go? How do you close out the end of the day? All of that stuff.
But.
Right,
Is
but
it my turn
You're
to
next,
speak? Because
yes.
You pointed, so
Yeah.
I think Lonnie was calling on me, and I want to,
Sorry.
I want to echo what Alicia is saying, because the issue isn't about limiting Maris's hours. It's about you knowing that you're doing the work. The 13,500 is almost 3 times the actual of the prior deputy. So it builds in time for Maris to come and train you, but it doesn't build in time for Maris to do the job on your behalf. And when I'm learning a job from somebody with an intention of taking that job over, that person does not work without me in the office. I am there shadowing them, and then I come in myself and I try to do the work and I use them as a resource and I rely on them. I have been in the office, I've been away, everybody knows that, but I'm frequently in the township when I'm in town. I was here today. Maris was here alone, working very hard. She does a fantastic job. You were not here. I understand that she hosted the county treasurer, all the township treasurers yesterday. You were not here. It's not about limiting Maris's hours. It's about having you step forward and do the job that we're paying you to do. And we're trying to build in adequate time for Maris to be available to train you, but we're not trying to build in time for her to come in and perform the work. And Maris, as we said, has shown that we don't need a deputy to perform the core services of the treasurer's office. If you were coming to the board and saying you wanted to expand the function of the treasurer's office, so for example, many treasurers, township treasurers do additional work. They might do grant writing. They might do, whatever you wanted to do to expand the scope of the role, then it would make sense for us to pay a treasurer who does whatever you were doing in this expanded role, and a deputy who does the core statutory duties. Maris chose as treasurer to do only the core functions, and to do that, she didn't require a deputy. So what I don't hear you saying is, I have a million ideas and a lot of things that I want to do, and to do all those great things, I'm in the office, I'm doing the work, and it's worth taxpayer dollars to pay the base salary for the treasurer, that we've always paid, plus additional funds for the deputy. We're giving more to the residents, but by adding this position. So it's not about reducing your flexibility or impugning Maris's skills. We know Maris is awesome, but we're expressing doubt that you're stepping into the role and learning it. And that's what we want to be assured that you're doing. And by reducing her hours, we're kind of forcing the issue. We're forcing you to come in and get trained. And you come in, you get trained, and then you begin to perform the duties, or you come to the board and say, I have additional duties I want to perform and I need more hours overall in my office to perform this extra work.
I just want, we are starting to get back to being very direct at each other, and just a reminder that we're not going to go back and forth, and you should be addressing any of those comments to the chair. So we should not be, it shouldn't be you, this, that, it's the treasurer's office. I just want to make sure, trying to keep us on track. I know I said this at the last meeting, good policy is good policy agnostic of who's in the position. And I don't want to get to a place where we are having personal and personality conflicts. We saw how that can tear the board apart in previous cycles. And I am going to do my best to make sure that we don't get to that same place. Trustee Nolte.
The only thing I wanted to echo to Karen when she says it's almost 3 times last year's actuals, it is 3 times because we do have to add back in Kim Haynes' work. And that's 2,000, so 13,500 plus, what, I forget what you said, Michelle, 2,100 or something.
2,100, but Kim does work in all 3 offices, and she does reconcile all 3 offices. So there is support from her, and she is very important. She has a very important role in Dexter Township, so I want to make that very clear.
That is a good point, though. I'll echo that. She also assists. She has reviewed almost all of these documents for us, for me, as well. So it is multiple offices for sure for that amount.
So, okay, so while Kim Haynes is in the office, yes. Is she assisting? And I don't want to comment, so please let me know, Brad, if I'm overspeaking or overreaching of your office. She is assisting with distributions right now, but that is also her taking the time to train someone, because Deputy Ditas really put forth all of his effort, and he learned how to do that very important job, and he had that skill. So she is assisting at this present time. But personally, I'd like to see some sort of a compromise between the two. My deputy, yes, he does work more hours. I'm delegating more to him. The job is larger. I choose to have other things that I'm passionate about, recycling, WWRA, open space. So the extra hours, or at least the 24, I am grateful for. Does he work extra hours? Yes. I've been documenting that on the side of his paycheck, what he fills out monthly, just to show that, yes, he's going over, but that's by choice. I know what the board has allocated and I respect that. When it comes to the treasurer's office, he's new, he's learning, he's being trained. I realize Maris is very, very good and very efficient in her role. Possibly she could have that same courtesy for the next 3 months and until summertime, after the summer, and tax collection, and she could just see where she's comfortable and where she fits and how many hours she does need. I've been there, and I don't want to see another board member be, limited, so I don't want to say unfairly, but unfairly, but it's not my office. But just to see, you all see what she's making, what her job, the hours she needs to put in. And in all fairness, Brad does have, or excuse me, Treasurer Metz does have a big job to learn. So I mean, just a compromise, I thought would be an idea, just to bring some sort of a consensus to the board, some sort of.
What would be the compromise?
Yeah, do you have a specific?
Just to be able to, see how many hours she puts in, how many hours does she need to fulfill that job? Maybe she could put even on her timesheet, this was for training and this is for tax, what she does versus the training that's involved. When the training's done, you can see how many hours she's fluctuating and you can get a timeline.
So are you
Sure.
recommending that we would just keep what is
I would ask
established?
Treasurer Metz to, how many hours, I mean, I was put in this position as well, and I did realize I needed to come and I needed to provide the board, what does my deputy do? And I gave all of the information, all of the work he would perform, 6 or so different parts of the job description. Does that job description fluctuate in hours? Sometimes it takes more time, sometimes it doesn't, but at least we can get some sort of a general, how many hours are being put in, because to limit someone to $13,500 for the year and then find out they're going over, I don't believe in people not getting compensated for work they're performing.
Can I
Trustee Sakinga.
just want to make a quick reiterate a point, which is we're trying to come to consensus around, I think we clearly, we don't agree, and I don't think we're going to come to an agreement overall. But I think that the fact that we're budgeting at an activity-based level means that the decision is not very material. The decision in front of us is not very material. So I think that you guys, as the executive team, you understand the board's concerns and you know what we want. And you have to go into the office and manage day to day in a way that we don't. And what we're going to do is essentially give you, we debated based on a line item budget to give you a very clear sense of our policy priorities. But the bottom line is you're going to have 1.2 million in operating funds. I want to point out, as usual, we had a budget of an operating budget this year of 1.25 million. We expended about 1.1 million. So we run a surplus. We in a sense, we over budget, and we're going to over budget again this year. So a reduction of $30,000 overall in the operating budget is not going to mean that you can't have if you really need time, you're not going to go over budget if you end up needing the deputy treasurer more than 8 hours a week. So I think we're spending a lot of time debating a decision that when it comes to you guys in the office isn't really going to be very material. But I think the discussion is useful because I think you guys understand the board and the concerns of the individual board members, and you can come back and speak on those matters if it's appropriate. And I kind of think we should just vote on the motion before the board. I think we all understand each other, and we're not necessarily going to come to agreement.
So the only comment that I have about that is a little bit, I disagree slightly in that yes, that is functionally how it will work. But I take very seriously the board's, and I know you do too, Karen. So this is not the board's fiduciary responsibility. And I think for us, for me at least, I feel like we have to have some sort of decision on that expenditure in the same way. For example, we spent a lot of time talking about the volunteer appreciation event, right? And that is expending far less money than $40,000. And so I don't want us to sort of say, oh, the executive committee will just pick this. Like that feels to me like not the right way for us to go. I think the board, functionally, yes, that's what this will mean because of how we budget. But I do think we have to have a direction. Also, and I will just point out in the consent agenda tonight on our meeting, we do set the wages as a part of a resolution, and that includes the wages and hours. So while this line item resolution and the overall approval of the budget, it is a decision that we have to make as a board because we are about to put it in a resolution as to what those hour limits and that hourly wage is. So while this may be materially, different because it is how we budget, I do feel like we have to have some resolution, not to prolong things. And I'm happy to move us into a vote on this motion. I think that's right. We've all sort of been able to state our piece here, and we can see.
I would just like to
Sure.
add that if the number of hours for the deputy training myself, the current treasurer, is cut to 8 hours a week, there is no way during a tax cycle that will be even close to enough hours. That would be impossible. And my deputy has also said to anybody on the board that is not part of the executive team, if you would like to step up and have my deputy train you as the treasurer, let me know right now and we'll make that happen. But just know that my deputy will then be training you for the entire job at however much can be trained in 8 hours a week.
Okay, I see. All right. Trustee Sanders.
I just want to say, Treasurer Metz, there's been several times where you've spoken for your deputy of what she has said to other people, and never have I heard any of those things from your deputy. She hasn't called me and we don't talk. So I don't know what you mean by she has said this to people.
And do you mean
And
that?
So-
she would-
hold on.
Do you mean she would, and if any of, one of us wanted to be the treasurer instead of a trustee, that you would?
The deputy
Yes.
treasurer.
Oh, so you're saying that you're making a job offer to any of the trustees to step into the deputy treasurer role?
Like I've said, and like Maris has told many people, maybe not,
haven't
like I
heard
said.
Anything from Maris. so I just
Okay.
want you to
And when I
know.
said that, I said I didn't want to speak for everyone, but I know
Yeah,
some people have at least heard this. Many of the board
Okay.
members have heard this, that if anybody would like to be my deputy, like I've reached out before and everybody said no. I reached out to other people. I reached out to an individual husband on the board and not interested. So I have tried to find somebody, but if anybody would like to step up and be trained to be the deputy treasurer, let me know right now and we'll make it happen. But just know that if we're at 8 hours a week, you're gonna have to get trained during those 8 hours somehow, which you will clearly see relatively quickly that that's impossible.
Trustee Nolte, and then I.
I have to say, the tone that is coming across from you, Treasurer Metz, is a little threatening. And I don't enjoy it being presented that way to the board. You presented that you work right now roughly 20 hours, you can work 20 hours a week, the whole day, Monday and Wednesday, and then Tuesday afternoon. And Thursday, your other job, and possibly Friday. So you're working 20 hours a week, and you're implying to us that if one of us want to be the treasurer, we could work those 24 hours. I'm asking
The-
Maris Metz, the past deputy, worked 24 hours. She worked part-time as the treasurer. We're already doing you should be working 24 hours because it's in that part-time, or you're working 20 hours. I don't know, what do executives work? Do you work 24 normally?
It's not specified, but it's part-time, so 20, minimum 20.
The point that we have to fund the treasurer an additional 24 hours to get the job done. We're at 40 some hours now, and I understand learning your job. Nobody's questioning the training period. The question, and I think Karen, trustee Sikega said it very well, is stepping up to make sure you're doing the job and stepping into the role. And you can also get trained on some parts of the job from Kim Haynes, because she's doing some parts of it. But I love
Sure,
it.
hold on. I have trustee Abbott next.
You know, I'm not.
All right, trustee Sikega.
People, I mean, I feel like we're in a circle. It's just what I said a minute ago. We all know what everybody thinks. We know that Brad doesn't agree with this decision or this proposal on the table. We know that everybody is torn about it and that there isn't a good solution. And I think we all understand each other's perspectives. And can we just vote? Does anybody feel like you have to say something that is new, that hasn't been said before?
I do now.
Trustee Abbott.
Why can't we just split the difference? If I wanted the treasurer to have 16 hours, the deputy treasurer, and we've got a motion for 8, and Treasurer Met says that he really needs 12 hours a week, why don't we just agree to 12 hours a week? And then she can use those, it could be a lump sum amount that's set in the budget line, and then she can use those 12 hours. There may be a week she only does 5 hours, and then she uses more the following week. But I'd rather that motion said 12 and then we move on, because I feel like we're feeding this to a pulp.
I second that change.
So wait, is that an amendment to the motion? Are you offering that as a formal amendment?
I'm offering that as a formal amendment that we do the deputy treasurer for 12 hours.
19.9.
Pardon?
Oh, it comes out.
So it would be
19.9.
19,968. And then
Can you tell me just really quickly, can you tell me
32 times 12 times 52.
30,
$32.
but
an
it's
hour.
3230.
Oh, 32.30.
Yep,
Oh,
times
30.
12 times 52. Oh, and I deleted first.
20,155.
I think that's what I have. Okay. All right, so that was an amendment.
an amendment to the motion.
Who seconded the original motion?
I did.
So Laura, do you accept that amendment?
I accept the amendment.
And trustee Nolte, you made the original motion. Do you accept the amendment?
Sure.
So the amendment now is 20,000 and still no limit to no hour specification. It's just a line item number.
I thought you just said 12 hours.
Well,
That's how she calculated.
Yeah,
it.
that's how
But she said
calculated.
could use
But
it.
they can use it, like you can use 8 one week.
Yeah.
A little more, yeah.
So the net effect for the Appropriation Act would be a reduction of $24,164.80 in operating expenses.
Okay. Any further discussion?
If I could,
Treasurer Betts.
trustee Nolte, I truly apologize for my tone.
Thank you. Passionate.
It's my office and I need to look out for my office and I apologize. Yep. And if anybody else felt the same about my tone, I'd apologize to the entire board.
All right, hearing no further discussion, the motion on the table, I'm just going to restate it, is to amend the community service support line item for WAVE to 17,000, the Dexter Senior Citizens Center, Dexter Senior Citizens Inc. to 10,000, to reduce the cemetery maintenance line item to 6,000, and to adjust the deputy treasurer wages line to 20,155 with no set hour limit, which is a net result of subtracting $24,164.80 from the general fund. Since this is dealing with money, we're going to move down the line.
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
If it's not based on hours, how does my deputy get paid? Are they gonna get a lump sum of this for the year and they can use the hours however, like, I'm honestly confused,
It
like,
just means that she can work as long as she can work, she can keep working at her hourly rate, get paid at her hourly rate. She can work as many hours as she wants in any given week, but when the budget is used up and she's consumed the, 12 hours times 52, then she's done for the year.
then she would be working for free at that point,
Well,
correct?
Or not working.
no, well, or you'd be running over budget.
Yeah, we can always, as we are doing with this year, there can always be amendments brought back
I
as well.
assume before it came to that point, you'd come back to the board and say, I need a budget increase because blah, 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 blah.
All right. All right, we're moving into a vote. We're gonna do a roll call vote since it's to deal with all of the money issues. Treasurer Metz,
No,
Trustee Abbott,
Yes.
Trustee Nolte,
Yes.
Trustee Sakinga, Trustee Sanders,
Yes.
Clerk Samuelis.
I need to work with the office now.
All right, and Supervisor Scott, yes, the motion passes. So we will make those changes for the operating budget requests for the actual resolution as well. So next up is capital budget requests. And we'll go down the line again for anyone who has discussion about the capital budget requests. Trustee Nolte,
No.
Trustee Abbott. Treasurer Metz.
No.
Clerk Samueli. Trustee Sanders. Trustee Sakinga.
Thank you all for having no questions about the local roads. I am thrilled and delighted that we're funding year 5 of this and completing the project. We've brought the roads into good condition. We are the talk of the county. And those of you who haven't had your roads fixed yet, like Clerk Willis, at last.
Broadband too.
And I just wanted also to say that the fire department has adopted our process of having a separate capital fund and saving for apparatus that way. And so we're already, our best practices are already being adopted by some of our partner agencies. So that's wonderful. And I want to say again that, that our capital, so our revenues, our general fund revenues are forecasted to be sufficient to cover the operating costs and the capital costs. And that's awesome. So it means we have a lot of play still, because you all remember we've got fund balances. So we will have play in future years with respect to the operating budget. So even though you can see that our revenue and expenses overall in the general fund are fairly close to equal, a big chunk of that is going for capital, and that means that in future years we still have room to play with operating. So
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Do you by any chance know off the top of your head, funding the 292 for the road, or what the roads?
well, it's roads and then the annual.
Yeah, do you know what the total of the 5 years has been off the top of your head?
Oh, gosh, it's been something like $2 million, I
So
think.
road
Close to 2
290.
million.
I mean, I don't know if that's the exact number, and some of that was paid by ARPA
Okay,
Yeah.
and
and
what is-
the road commission.
yeah, and what is the general maintenance for the next projected year? Do we know? We
So
had
the
that number,
ongoing
didn't we?
cost for the roads, once we move into maintenance phase, which will be
Was it-
next year, I hope, is 100,000.
Was it
Our share is
100,000?
100,000 and the road commission's share is 50,000. And we'll be going back to those heavy use roads first, because the heavy use roads, which are basically McKinley, Wiley, and Huron River Drive, have to be addressed every 5 years, and the lower use roads, which is all the rest of the roads, get addressed every 10 years. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything else on the capital budget request? And then I do want to, I actually moved probably too quickly on the last request trustee Abbott, you had made a suggestion and we said it would be a separate motion and I skipped right over it. So if you have a motion, I'm sorry. I know we were cruising right along. But I did want to give you that opportunity. If-
Well, I just wanted to make a motion that we increase the deputy treasurer or the deputy clerk. My brain is frazzled now after all of this. The deputy clerk's hours, I'd like them to be at 30 because I believe he actually works 30 hours a week. And, so I would make a motion. I would make a motion to, increase his hours to 30 hours. I know that they're only requesting 24.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it. And I have a question.
Trustees, okay, so moved by Abbott, seconded by Sakinga, and trustee Sakinga. Go ahead.
Does the deputy clerk assign time to the elections budget separate from the general government budget? Because that elections budget is reimbursable, you know? And I think we've talked about this before, but there's a line for elections management. And I haven't historically encouraged the clerk's office to assign as many to fully account for the time, all the costs associated with the elections so that we can maximize our reimbursement for elections expenses, including the deputy clerk, which would be paid under the elections manager line then instead of the deputy clerk line. So in other words, is that happening? And if so, the deputy clerk is already authorized to work more than 24 hours, but
Right,
under a
okay.
separate budget.
Oh, that's absolutely. I mean, if he didn't, and it's not just my deputy clerk that is receiving funding from the election management.
I don't think I was aware of that.
Yes.
We bring in quite a few individuals that,
If you take those election numbers, Alicia, it
Mhm.
really puts his salary up to.
Make sure you say it louder so that it's
I
on.
was just saying, if you take the election numbers and you add it to the deputy clerk's payroll, it takes you very near your numbers.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that.
and what I will say is election day is usually 24 hours. So if you were to multiply what my deputy makes per hour times a 24-hour work week, which is one day technically, and the day prior, it's another at least 10 hours. I mean, there is so much training. We're here on the weekends,
Mhm.
as well as I have other staff that is compensated out of that $5,000 bucket. Then my deputy would absolutely be over full-time. I will abstain from this vote anyways, but what I will say is my deputy's in the office working.
Mhm.
And now, like I stated, the last 2 months, I have been monitoring when he's working over.
Okay.
I mean, even when it comes to the end of the day at 2:30, our office manager, Michelle Fiesel, does leave for the day, and that phone consistently rings throughout the day. We have an amazing office manager. She's doing what she needs to do. And my deputy does stick around for those 2 hours.
What do you estimate that your deputy works then a week? Because I just know that I come in here pretty frequently and he is always here working.
I mean,
But I'm confused, like, is he getting paid for 24 hours a week or is he getting paid for 24 hours a week plus elections time?
oh, absolutely, plus
Plus
election
elections.
time. And
Yeah.
previous,
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't need to increase his hours in the budget because he's paid for the two buckets.
oh, absolutely not.
Yeah, no.
Oh,
So we could let.
See,
the-
I wasn't aware of that.
So we
can
could let the
withdraw.
motion die probably without a
Yeah.
vote because he's compensated for his hours for the election.
For the election, absolutely.
Okay. That was new information.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was hesitant about seconding it, but I thought I should because that permits discussion and I knew that there was this.
Thank you.
Now you
that
can
needed
move
to
to
clarify.
Yes. Now I moved to kill that motion.
You-
Is that-
So you're rescinding your motion?
Rescinding that motion.
All right.
Yes.
I will say what I am documenting is not elections.
Okay.
That's, yeah, that,
So I want to make it very clear that the job is a large job.
Right.
And, you know, I appreciate whomever it was, I believe it was you, trustee Sickinga, stating that, you know, if you do have I don't want to say a pet project, but something that you are working for the rest of the community that goes above and beyond your job description. I'm able to fulfill a lot of those wonderful things because I do have a deputy that steps up and assists me with the additional workload. But it's not just that. I mean, on an off election year, there's training, there's seminars, there's so many things. And now here we are, and it's not an off election year. So what I will say is on a normal week without elections involved in that equation, my deputy is absolutely working 30 hours a week.
So we no longer are in discussion. I wanted to let
I
the
just
clerk
wanted to clear that
finish,
up.
but since the motion has been rescinded, if there's an additional motion, we can consider that. Oh,
That
on,
was- Yeah, it's fine.
And I'll continue to monitor these hours and I'll bring them forth
Right.
when I actually have a timeline.
That's good.
all right, since I didn't do it last time, one last call, any motions on operating budget requests? Hearing none. Any motions on capital budget requests? Hearing none, we'll move into discussion about the General Appropriations Act resolution. Again, these numbers will change before our next board meeting. But you do have in front of you the copy of the resolution. There is a new one for you that was left at your desk because we did find a couple of changes that I need to highlight for you. Give me one second because it's at the back of my packet here. We had to adjust some of the revenue numbers, and I want to thank Trustee Sakinga for pointing out some discrepancies that led to us finding that we were actually sort of allocating these numbers incorrectly in this resolution. And so we've made some small adjustments to the estimated revenues numbers from what was in your packet. So that's what has changed in this new draft. And so you can see those actual numbers there. And if there are any other questions or concerns, I'm just going to go down the line again like we did last time, and we can talk about those then. Trustee Nolte.
Forgot what I was gonna say before, and I just remembered. Michelle, just a FYI, if we fill the position for the project coordinator, that person can be helpful to you rather than calling on your deputy when you're working on outside projects, outside of your office function.
I'm
You
looking
know what I
forward
mean?
to it,
Yeah.
especially when
Like
it comes to
recycling.
film plastic.
Yeah, that it might help you. Yeah, research.
Trustee Abbott.
Oh, did you not have any?
No,
Oh, I'm
I-
sorry.
I do not either.
All right.
Anyone else?
Treasurer Metz.
None.
Clerk Samueli.
None.
Trustee Sanders.
None.
Trustee Sakinga.
Just have a quick one, which is that the 743, which is at the bottom of the spreadsheet, is the total operating expenditures, is just $4,000 or less than $4,000 different than the general fund operating expenditures. So if we just work off the spreadsheet with the motion, it'll be $4,000 difference. But I think we should probably we should take the number off the spreadsheet.
Which spreadsheet? I'm sorry.
This one that we're looking at, this budget proposal that we've all been talking about just now, the general fund. That was on our desks.
Yes.
The-
And
Page 4.
Page 4, at the bottom of page 4, the total operating expenditures there proposed is 1,228,743. Whereas in the appropriation, it says 1,232,487. And I'm just gonna recommend that we stick with the 1,228,743 since that was the basis of the discussion.
Wouldn't
I-
the $4,000 differential be right there in the cemetery to go from 10,000 to 6,000?
No, that doesn't matter. I
doesn't
mean,
matter?
it's just
Page
that
4,
these
1, 2,
numbers,
2, 8.
that this number,
Under the
this
jump.
appropriation number
I'm
should have
sorry.
been equal to that number, that bottom line on page 4.
Gotcha.
And it wasn't. So now we proposed based on this 1,228,
Sorry,
remove
Supplemental. It's under here.
30,000 from the budget. So I think we should use as a starting point, the spreadsheet, not the appropriation order.
Gotcha.
so
And these are probably all my mistakes. So it was very kind of Lonnie to thank me for finding the revenue error, but I made the mistake. So
I was gonna leave that part out. I was trying to take a responsibility here.
making me look good, but you really should be pointing the finger at.
I'm just, so I have two,
Kim did a save as,
yes, and I have two versions and I'm not sure which one of them is.
But again, I think it's not
Kim's.
very material because it's a $4,000 difference. But if this is what you're gonna use to load into BSNA, you're gonna need to use this for the budget, and it's not gonna add up to 1,3.
So you're saying on the resolution,
That
No.
we assume that the starting point was 1,228,743, similar because.
instead of 1,232?
Yes, because that's what we were discussing. In the
Okay.
beginning.
I just want to make sure I had the right.
And let's just say, this is it, this is the budget.
Although that number will switch because
Yeah.
I'm going to do those calculations for the update.
And it's gonna become 1,208.
Yeah.
743 or whatever.
Right. Okay. Any motions or changes to the resolution? All right, hearing none. Now I don't know what I did with my agenda. There it is. We are to our next call for public comment. Hearing none. Any other issues, comments and concerns of board members or staff? None. We have concluded our budget hearing business and I will call the meeting adjourned at 7:38. 7-minute recess. We'll start back at 7:45 so that I can update the resolution and get everyone copies of the most accurate numbers. So we are calling the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees to order. And we will start, I'm stealing your pen. Sorry about that. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now we'll move into roll call and conflict of interest check. Trustee Sakinga.
I'm present and I have no comment.
Trustee Sanders.
Present and no.
Clerk Samuelis.
Present, none.
Treasurer Metz.
Present, none.
Trustee Abbott.
Present none.
Trustee Nolte.
Present none.
All right, we'll now move into approval of the agenda. Approval of the agenda. Sorry, I got ahead of myself.
So moved.
It's been moved by Trustee Sakinga. Is there a second? Seconded by Trustee Nolte. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. All right, the agenda is approved. As we get to our first call for public comment, there are no members of the public here, but I do want to introduce our newest Dexter Township staff member, Fletcher Rayer, who is our new Director of Planning and Zoning. And so Fletcher's coming on up.
There's a button on the side.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. My name is Fletcher Ryer. I'm the new Director of Planning and Zoning. I come from Ypsilanti Township and I bring a few years of experience with me, Masters of Urban Planning, my AICP certification. I'm excited to serve the residents of Dexter Township and work with the board as well as the Planning Commission and ZBA moving forward. I want to thank all of you for giving me the chance to work with you all. Thanks.
Yay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Fletcher.
Thank you for your great report.
Moving on in the agenda, we have the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Sakinga, seconded by Abbott. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move into a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The motion carries. We'll now move into our action items. The first of which is the acceptance of financial transactions. Is there a motion?
I'll move to accept the financial transactions.
It's been
Make up for being gone last month.
moved by trustee Sakinga. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by treasurer Metz. Any discussion? It's on page 41. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move into a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. The motion carries. We'll now move into the fiscal year 2025 budget amendments. That is found on page 49. And a couple of things so that you can see what we did here. Again, as we've talked about, we budget at the department level. And so these changes are specifically to those departments. You'll see the actual number changes highlighted in yellow. What I highlighted in green here is actually the department numbers, because on the previous version that was included in your packet, the numbers were incorrect or weren't listed. So the green is just the actual department numbers as they reflect in our GL, and the yellow are the actual changes. So I did double check today. Since these numbers, I originally pulled this together for the packet. It was the end of February. I checked today for any other disbursements, and these amended numbers will cover what we have left, or should cover what we have left for this month, so that it will bring our fiscal year 2025 budget into alignment. The changes that were made, just a quick explanation. We've talked about this at several previous meetings. We knew this was coming. Under building and grounds was the maintenance line. We actually didn't include the cemeteries is also in there, which may be, but we also did not include any of the snow removal as a part of that line item, and that has been the snow removal and ice. Salting of the parking lot has been incredibly expensive. It's one of the reasons that we went back to bid. The applications for salt have been enormous, and the cost for salt has gone up astronomically recently. So that is one of the reasons for the overage there. And then in the planning and zoning administration, we have gone over by quite a bit for the planning consultants, as we've had disruption in that department and had them doing different amounts of coverage while we were working through any of those staffing issues that had taken place throughout the year. On the far side, so you'll see that the budget amendments that I'm proposing are 62,000 as the overall budget for building and grounds, and then 276,625 in the planning and zoning administration line. To the right of that, on that spreadsheet, you can see the original budgeted amount. So the 50,500 was our original budget for building and grounds, and 216,13 was our original budget for planning and zoning. Trustee Sakinga.
Comments to what you said. Also in planning and zoning, we over expended the budget, the attorney budget, which related to all of the changes to the zoning ordinance that we considered and approved this year. Those were a long time coming, but the 25 budget was based on the 24 expenses when we weren't doing that. So it wasn't just the planning consultant that caused us to go over. And then the other thing about the planning consultant is that we had two special projects this year that weren't included in the original budget. One was the renewables, and the other was the short-term rentals. So it wasn't just it wasn't just the vacancy the unexpected vacancy that occurred. There were some actual material additional services that were provided to the township that came out of that budget, out of those increased costs. I mean, real quality of life improvements, I think, for township residents.
Thank you. The only other last thing that I'll note, I had to move my sticky note here to see it, is even with these changes, we're still projecting a fiscal year 2025 surplus of about $177,000. So even with the increase in budget by 70,000, we still expect to be well within our operating budget. Is there a motion to approve the amended fiscal year 2025 budget?
So moved. I'll second.
Moved by trustee Nolte, seconded by trustee Sakinga. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move into a vote. I'll do a roll call vote since it's dealing with finances. Trustee Nolte,
Yes.
trustee Abbott,
Yes.
treasurer Metz,
Yes.
clerk Samueli,
Yes.
trustee Sanders,
Yes.
trustee Sakinga,
Yes.
and supervisor Scott, yes. So the budget amendment is approved. Now moving on to page 52. In our action items, this is the authorization to solicit healthcare policies for full-time staff. I want to make a couple notes before we ask for any kind of motions. We do have two healthcare related items in the packet tonight. This first one is the authorization to actually solicit policies for our two full-time staff members. What you see in your packet here on pages 52 and 53 are actual cost for specific policies. We have not made a decision about those policies. And so the real question here is not about the specific healthcare policy, but it is about the level of township support, whether we would pay 80% of that premium or 90% of the premium, with the employee paying the other either 20 or 10% respectively for full-time staff, and to authorize the supervisor to seek and choose those small group plan policies to actually get them in place. These are actual numbers, and you can see in your packet for these plans, you could see what the group rate grid is. So this would tell us, what it would cost for additional folks as well if we chose those policies. But really, what we want to discuss and have a motion for is to approve which level of support the township would support, either 80 or 90% of the premium, as well as then authorizing the supervisor to solicit those plans and finalize them. Budgetary wise, included in the budget for 2026, we included the healthcare stipend amount for each full-time staff member, which is actually higher than any of these plans. So essentially what we would be approving is authorizing the supervisor to select a plan within the budgeted amount based on the 80-20 split or 90-10 split that the board decides.
Do you know our total healthcare cost right now, roughly?
Um,
I saw a 10,000 number, but that can't be right.
What's the stipend times the number,
yeah, the stipend is slightly different. $648 per month per staff member. So yeah, and we did include it. So it is in two line items here. In the general government line item, there's a healthcare line. And then there's also one in the planning line, since that's where those positions. All right, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, how many employees are we talking? Two, just two right now?
For this decision, it's two.
Two.
It's the two full-time staff members.
I'll make a motion to approve a small group plan for Dexter Township full-time staff at 90%.
I'll second.
And the reason I picked 90% is because it's lower cost than the stipend, even at 90%. And I do believe a copay is a good idea.
So we have a motion and a second, and we'll start discussion. The motion was to start a small group plan for full-time staff, with the township covering 90% and a 10% pay by the full-time staff members. Discussion.
Good work, guys.
I actually, and I don't know if this falls under here, but it's dependent care. Are we, so imagine Sam's married, she's got 3 kids. If she were to add their dependents, add them as dependent care on the insurance plan, are we paying 90% of everyone in her family? And I'm bringing this up because it came up on another situation on a board, and I want to know that if we're paying 90%, we're only paying 90% for the actual employee, and that dependent care is 100% their cost.
That is how it's described in the personnel guideline.
Yes.
Is it?
It
Okay.
is.
That right now we're covering only individuals.
Only.
Correct.
Okay.
In our current personnel policy, we do have a discussion line later about part-time staff, elected officials, and any dependents that we don't have a proposal for yet. Because I think we still need more information and the board hasn't had a discussion about it. But currently, this is just for the full-time staff members. Any other discussion?
I just want to say for the record, good job, guys. I mean, I think this has been something we've been wanting to do for a long time. And we were stymied a bit by not having 2 people to enroll. And so welcome. And I'm so glad that you are creating the magic carpet that allows us to create this group plan. And I'm thrilled to see it. So.
I'm very happy to see it too.
Me too.
Yeah, I would like to say a special thanks to the clerk as well, who has continuously, since the first executive meeting that we've had after I was elected, brought this up, and we wanted to make sure that we got it done. So definitely thank you to the clerk for pushing it forward. And to Sam for collecting all of the information and making sure that we had everything that we needed to be able to move forward.
Great job, Sam.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll move into a vote. Because this is also money related, we'll do a roll call vote just to make sure. Trustee Sakinga,
Yes.
Trustee Sanders.
Yes.
Clerk Samueli,
Yes.
Treasurer Metz.
Yes.
Trustee Abbott,
Yes.
Trustee Nolte,
Yes.
and myself, Supervisor Scott, yes. So the agenda item carries. Next, we'll move into the adoption of the fiscal year 2026 budget. And this is then the General Appropriations Act resolution. So essentially what the motion would be to adopt the resolution itself, which is what authorizes the budget. Is there a motion?
Can I make the motion? I would love to make the motion.
Trustee Sakinga has moved. Is there a second?
Well, and I'm moving the General Appropriations Act as amended in the budget hearing to reflect the 1,208,000 and change instead of the number that was in the published package.
Yep,
It's fixed in this.
as amended. Yep.
Okay.
The new one that we passed out.
Okay.
So it's been moved by Trustee Sakinga, seconded by Trustee Abbott. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move into a vote. And we'll start with Trustee Nolte.
Yes.
Trustee Abbott,
Yes.
Treasurer Metz,
Yes.
Trustee Sakinga,
Yes.
Trustee Sanders,
Yes.
Clerk Samueli,
Yes.
and Supervisor Scott, yes. The General Appropriations Act resolution is adopted.
Hmm.
Goes under 7E. Or 7.
I believe E. We kind of combined the two because it's really the authorization of the budget.
No discussion.
Correct. Yep. Moving into discussion items, we are back to healthcare benefits. And I will start with our clerk, who, as I said, has done an enormous amount of work on this. It's on page 71 of your packet.
Yeah, it's right here.
It's not. on
And I just want to, I want
there.
to,
Sorry, I see 71. I'm not looking at the right.
Page
packet, I guess.
68 of your old.
I'm sorry, page
My old
68 of your old
Okay,
packet.
all right, thank you.
This was, I hope we never have this much supplemental
I-
material. I really
Need to
apologize
know
that
the
I had to,
pages. Yeah, thanks.
I take all of the blame for
Yeah,
that.
it's
So
okay.
sorry about that. Really quickly, before I turn things over to the clerk, I just want to kind of set the stage for this discussion. This is a policy question, whether or not we provide insurance for elected officials, part-time staff, and if so, at which level. There are many options, and so we are starting this as a discussion item. We will not take any action on this. The other idea and thought process behind this is that since we're going to start a group plan, once we've had this discussion at our April meeting, we can actually come back with real numbers from what that plan is. In the same way that you had the rate grid for the examples that were in the packet here, we will have that information from whatever plan we have started with our 2 full-time staff. So we will be able to then compare real numbers at the April meeting for any kind of actual proposal that takes place. So tonight is meant to be just a discussion as a policy question about whether or not that's something that the township would like to pursue. I do want to say, I found out today from the treasurer of Webster Township that he had done an enormous amount of research on this, and that of the 10 similar communities, and I don't have the entire list, that the clerk does, that he looked at. Am I stealing your thunder then?
No.
Because
go
I'll
ahead.
just, are you
You're
sure?
fine. He just texted.
Okay. Webster Township is deciding this issue for their elected officials tonight at their board meeting. And so they are moving forward as making that decision. But the 10 similar sized townships to us, several of them are open 3 days or less per week, and all of their elected officials have other jobs. There were 3 that were open 4 days a week or more and did not have any kind of insurance coverage for their elected officials. It was Dexter Township, Webster Township, and Northfield Township. And Northfield Township actually has a township manager. So all of their elected officials also have other positions. It's a different setup than us or Webster. Webster tonight is voting on whether or not they add any kind of coverage for their elected officials. So we are quite literally potentially the last community to be offering any kind of healthcare benefits to elected officials. So I just wanted to.
Last, we're the only community. None
Well,
of
we don't
them-
know if Webster is deciding tonight.
But none of the others are, and Webster might.
All the others do. Any of the others that are open 4 days a week or more, besides us, Webster Township and Northfield Township, do offer healthcare to their elected officials.
Well, I thought you said they all have other jobs. None of the elected officials.
3 day, those are the townships that were open 3 days or less.
He's-
How
you're
many are
referring to
those? How
Northfield
many of
Township.
those?
I'm not looking.
Northfield
Yeah.
Township, when I brought the stats, when we were talking about a township manager, Northfield Township actually has a township manager. So the executives have a much lower position. So they do not offer. healthcare.
Webster was the only, or I'm sorry, Northfield Township is the only one that is 4 days plus per week that doesn't, that their township officials but their township officials also are part-time because they have a township manager position. The others that are open 4 days or more per week do offer some coverage for their elected officials.
Okay, so you did not say, but I thought you said that he looked at 10 entities, 7 were open 3 days a week, 3 were open 4 days a week. The 7 that were 3 days a week or less don't have any health insurance. The 3 that are open 4 days or more don't have any health insurance. That's what I heard you saying, so I'm.
I'll let,
confused.
the clerk has an actual message, so I'll let, maybe I'm not articulating well.
No worries. So I'll give my first spiel. So I'm recommending to my fellow Board of Trustees to consider entertaining healthcare benefits to be allowed to part-time workers, which include elected officials working in the office on a day-to-day basis. The same decision is an action item in Webster Township this evening. And Treasurer Shar from Webster Township sent me over some stats. I was just doing, when I did my stats, I was just finding our local municipalities that were similar to us, not real, with many of them being open 3 days or less, much less hours. So what he wrote back to me was in 2022, there were 20 townships in Washtenaw County. 10 were open to the public, less than 4 days per week. None of them provided any benefits to board officers. There were another 10 that were open to the public 4 days or more per week. 7 out of those provided provide, I'm sorry, insurance and retirement benefits for board officers. 70%, he said 70 to 90%. I will just put both of those out there. With 3 of the
I see.
20, or with 3, so out of those 10, 7 do give benefits. But out of those 10, 3 do not. Northfield Township, because they do have a township manager. The executives are very limited in their hours. They more or less show up for a board meeting and make those decisions, where the town, other than the 2 offices, by statute, treasurer with taxes, clerk with elections, the township manager takes care of all the other duties in the office, which is realistic that they would not have benefits because they do not have the office hours. The other 2 are Webster Township and Dexter Township.
Thank you. That was much clearer than what I was trying to relay.
So I would just like to see the fiscal impact.
Absolutely.
That's it. So I just would like to know the total cost.
And
And I assume when you're talking about the executives, you're not talking about the board, the full board, correct?
I think that's a policy question because that would be really hard to make a distinction between, I think, elected officials, and because to me, and maybe I'm thinking about this the wrong way, to me, it's more about the hours, and like you all technically are also part-time. I mean, you could tell me I'm wrong, but that's where I think the distinction, that's where I wanted the policy discussion to go. Is there an hour threshold that is set that if, the trustees, maybe it's just that you're able to buy in if you want to, right? It doesn't have to be that the township pays. That's where I think we have to figure out what that policy is. Is it available? If so, does the township contribute anything to that? And to me, that's the same question for the trustees, the executive, and frankly, part-time or dependents, which is all different categories, but.
Doesn't the personnel policy right now provide that part-time employees also get the stipend on a pro rata basis? We just don't have anybody who's taken it so Michelle, this really pertains only to Michelle Fiesel. She hasn't taken it because she's covered by her. So we're already offering, I think our personnel policy already provides for coverage for part-time employees. So it's really only elected officials that aren't currently captured by the policy.
Although with the change to a group plan for equity in healthcare reasons, we would have to state what that percentage is as opposed to or what the policy is, right? Our policy in the personnel manual for the stipend is based on their current salary. I
No,
think we would
it's
have to.
based on their hours. And so I think you could apply the same formula. So if they're, 80% of 32 hours, then they get 80% of the 643 a month. So we could just give them 80% of the 90% coverage. We could apply the same formula to the group plan for the part-time employees that's already embedded in the personnel policy.
Okay. Yeah, we would just have
Not
to
based
figure out
on-
those
yeah.
like, we would
You
have to
just
figure out
have
what
to
those
calculate.
calculations look like, because it would change a little bit stipend versus premium versus what that employee is paying.
I think you guys should come back with the amended personnel policy with, because we did state at the time we approved it that we preferred to go to a group plan. So we're moving forward on a policy preference that the board already put forward. So we should formalize that in the personnel guidelines. And then I think you should give us the fiscal impact of including the elected officials. And I think it makes common sense that I think we could look at the cost for just the executives and look at the cost for the full board. And see what the cost difference would be, but I'll stop now because you didn't even call. That's fine. That's fine.
I did want to get this out, but I just thought it would be good reading material. This is what they are proposing on their agenda this evening, so
Webster.
yes, and be a sister community, very similar in
Yeah.
size and residential as well as in a commercial area. They're the most comparable to us, and I was overwhelmingly surprised at how seriously they are taking healthcare benefits. And for that matter, I mean, I was very impressed. So I'll just hand this out, but it's on their agenda for an action item, so. Don't know what the outcome will be yet, but. But they were much more aggressive than I thought they would be. Pro thinking towards the importance of healthcare.
Any other discussion? I guess let me ask it this way before we spend, is there anyone who thinks this is not a thing that we should look at all? Is there anyone who?
I mean, I totally think it would be a no-brainer for us just to say any of us can buy into it, because it only helps us the more participants we have, and it could be at a 0% subsidy by the township, and it's clearly much cheaper than purchasing on the exchange. So I absolutely think we should be talking about it, and I think we should open the door to anybody, to elected officials and all employees participating, and the question is, do we want to subsidize it for the elected officials and at what level?
Any other discussion? Do you have anything else?
So Webster, can I just clarify, Michelle, Webster is choosing to do an 80% subsidy for full-time employees, township officers, and their spouses and families?
And that very much surprised me.
Okay.
I mean, what I would like to
Families,
propose
spouses.
when the action item comes is, of course, something similar to the executives. I was not going to bring forth dependents, but to be able to buy in, I think is very important. So reading this, I was very, very surprised with a board that was so forward-thinking of the importance of healthcare. And, that just opens the platform for others that want to run in this. And I've said this, it's redundant, but for those who will have the want to run for office in the future, these benefits are definitely necessary, and they're a big perk.
Hearing no further discussion, we'll move on to our next discussion item, which is community conversation about immigration policy in Washington County. Trustee Sanders and Trustee Nolte.
Yeah, I think just really briefly, we have Karen Nolte and I have been talking about the flag issue and just welcoming, diversity, our understanding of diversity in Dexter Township. And we kind of shifted to thinking that maybe we should have some community conversations about issues that are really kind of up right now in terms of also the political climate. And I think, I know a lot about immigration because I have been working in this area for 18 years, and I'm a social worker and community
organizer around it, and I'm happy to have a community conversation about what it, you know, what we should know. I think as elected officials as well, it's just like people in a community. And there is gonna be one at, One World, One Family in Chelsea is having us, our organization, come and do a 90-minute presentation too in Chelsea Library. And it's kind of still getting created, but that's gonna be on Monday evening, March 31st. So I was just thinking that, you know, I could do that, and then if we wanted to host a community conversation about, you know, we're considered kind of, it's symbolically a sanctuary county. I don't think people really know what that means. There's just a lot of things that I think we could talk about in terms of impacts on our immigrant community.
Or are you asking to?
Well,
for the
The-
board?
Yeah, this is,
You know, bring it forth as a discussion because of the point, you know, and I want to get past this one in Chelsea, and I'm not quite ready yet to make a date, but I was hoping that,
Is
you
it
know.
Wicker that, when you
Um,
say our organization?
Well, Washtenaw Interfaith Coalition for Immigrant Rights, Wicker, is continuing on. However, we've started a new organization as well, a group of people, because Wicker can't do it all. I mean, this is kind of detailed. There's a lot going on. And Wicker really can't sustain it all. And so we are picking up some, especially community education is one of the missions of our organization.
But I just meant it's not, when you said our organization is.
Not, no, an organization I am involved
I'm
in.
in a different.
Yeah. And I also teach on these issues at U of M School of Social.
any other discussion? So just to clarify, so I asked, using our 3-touch system, we had in a report last, it was slightly different because it was around inclusive flags. This is sort of an iteration of that has switched to more of a community engagement focus. So this would be our second touch as a discussion item today. And then I think Trustee Sanders will come with an actual proposal at the April meeting for a potential date or concept of what.
Yeah,
It
and
would
and
be.
it was only, this is just a first, we, Karen, and I really,
Essentially like a coffee talk.
yeah, coffee
Yeah.
talk.
Like a coffee
And it
chat.
wouldn't
Yeah.
just be, this is not the only issue.
Sure.
Yeah.
Switching it to coffee chat. And I will also, I'll add to, since we brought up last month, Chelsea Equality has reached out to us and me. And probably you, Laura, if you've talked to Kate Brenda. And they would like us to try to get with Dexter and start an equality branch, and then we can merge them all to get a larger focus within the county. But that's.
Any additional discussion? All right, thank you. We will move on in the agenda to item 9, Q&A, staff and Dexter Township Committee reports. Are there any questions or things that folks would like to highlight from their reports? Yeah, absolutely.
Want to let everybody know that for the next weeks, they're going to be doing equipment installation in the cabinets. So intermittently, the sirens may go off. But if they do, it's not an emergency. It's only an emergency if they go off for 5 minutes or more. So just know that if you hear the warning siren, it's because there's work being done.
Does that say that in your?
No,
No, okay,
no,
okay.
that part's not in it.
I think
but
we need to clarify that for in the loop kind of, so.
Yeah,
they don't-
we can definitely do that. I did put out, an announcement on the Facebook page.
Yeah, I
and
saw
the,
that.
Website, so.
And
You might.
And the county sent an alert. If you were, so this is actually another,
I got that.
and Sam,
County.
I just want to say, I had my little note, so I didn't forget. I showed it to Brad. No, it's also important for the community who may not know, I did not realize that the county is no longer using the old Nixle system that many of us probably signed up for emergency alerts. You actually have to download an app now. And so I downloaded the app today after finding that out and did get our alert about the warning sirens. So for any of the community members, and it is, we will include it in the loop, but I'm going to tell you the name of the app as well, if I can find it here. It's called Everbridge. And once you sign up with Everbridge, you can select your community and you can select what type of alerts. If you only want weather alerts, if you want traffic alerts, if you want any of that, emergency situation alerts, you can sign up for all of those. Anyone else that wants to highlight things from their report or have questions about the reports?
Can I make a comment? So I was appointed to go to the Western Washtenaw Regional Advisory Group, and it was canceled for snow last month, and the first month my mother had died, so I didn't go. So this was my first time. And it was very interesting. So, but it happened on Wednesday, so I didn't have time to submit a report to the packet. Okay, so I've written a little report. It's just really general, but it was interesting because they went through, the county commissioners were invited and representative from the administration, and they really went through the whole county budget and the whole county priorities. And this is a little list of the county priorities. But what I thought was really interesting is if you look at create a sustainable community through Resilient Washtenaw Climate Action Plan, which is about halfway down, their goals are 0 carbon emissions for all county operations by 2030 and 0 carbon emissions for the whole county, including residents and everything, by 2035. So that's really like an aggressive is not the right word, but like a really
aggressive.
progressive or aggressive, you know, like.
I think you should go ahead and put that in the next month's package, you know, just so it can go out to the public, because it's pretty interesting.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm gonna keep going, and anybody can go, and it's, you know, you can, anybody can go, and I've listed the meetings down here when they are, and they're in the council room in Chelsea.
What time are those meetings?
They're at 7 o'clock.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that Michelle still facilitating it?
No,
No.
I did not see him there.
I think it's the mayor.
Well, she was not there.
Oh.
So if somebody's facilitating it, but
Yeah.
but everybody, there was a whole panel of county people, so it was all planned. It was formal. I think in a different way than they normally will be. I'm not sure. So thank you for appointing me, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the report.
Yeah.
Any other committee reports, Fletcher? Anything from, do you have anything you want to tell us about?
Good evening, everyone. Just a quick update on the planning and zoning report. In the month of February, there were 7 permits issued. This month, we're already surpassed 7. So I expect to see, with the springtime rolling around, a lot more permits rolling through the department. Also, there's been an update on the code enforcement list, specifically regarding 14180 North Territorial Road. A letter had been sent out to the property owner, and a reinspection date will take place on March 31st. And for 14044 Ridgemont, there's a reinspection scheduled for tomorrow, and it is my hope that the property owner has complied with that violation that was sent out.
Trustee Nolte?
Thank you.
I just have a,
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that, it's not a question for,
no, it wasn't.
did anyone, hold on, sorry. Did anyone have any questions for Fletcher? Guess not. You didn't have to come back. Sorry.
I did actually have a question about the report. I was interested, it looked to me like the, new subdivision is building the houses as they're selling them, not building them, so did I read, did I correctly interpret? So it says, as of the end of February, 8 single-family zoning permit applications have been received, 8 were issued, but the 8th was canceled at the prospective
Yeah.
buyer's withdrawal of the offer, so they're building, so when we approved it, I thought they were just gonna build the subdivision and then have like a model home and then, but it sounds like instead they're selling them and then building them as they sell them. Is that right?
It does seem like the case. What I will say is that, a building permit for Hillside Acres was issued just last week. So the eighth house, currently has a zoning approval and they're going to CACA for approval on that. But I would need to look at the conditions levied on this approval by the planning
Yeah.
commission to see if there was any condition that they couldn't build as sold. But typically, like you said, Karen, subs are built out in their entirety.
Yeah.
And there's a model home for potential buyers to walk through. And go further.
Oh, I have a question about that same the subdivision, because I can see it getting built. It doesn't look to me yet like it's the same, that it's matching the plan that we all looked at, when the planning commission approved it and we ended up voting on it, 45 homes or 45, 48, something like that. But there's one that's going in that's just really gigantic, and it doesn't seem like it's following the plan. I don't know if it got shifted or changed or whatever, and I could be wrong, I'm just watching from my window, my yard. So I wonder, how do we ask questions about that?
Absolutely. I can reach out to the contractor. Moving forward, I plan on going out to inspect each foundation before it's poured to ensure that it matches the approved site plan on file. And then, of course, have OHM come out when necessary to verify that slopes are accurate and that the builders are doing what they said they would do. It is a very visible sub, like you said, and I plan on being very attentive to the sub as it's built out, and to ensure that the contractors do what they said they're going to do.
I appreciate trustee Sanders' comment because I also thought that these homes were supposed to be a more smaller scale home.
Yeah.
And when I saw the larger home go in and the gentleman came in with needing his permitting, he said they were building the largest Gunther home on that lot. And I really didn't think that they were building those large homes there. But
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
Well,
But-
I looked at that plan really carefully, and there were supposed to be 48 houses that, and on what was the lot size that we ended up with? One and 1.5. No, I think it was one, anyway,
thought
I
there were
don't think
48 homes.
it's matching what I remember.
Okay.
Sure. I want to get,
Since I sat in planning commission
Mhm.
meetings all that time, all of those were supposed to be single-story homes because they approved reducing the setback between homes. So they were all supposed to be single.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Well, yeah, I don't remember.
I
that
don't
either,
think
not
that
on
was
the
true,
plan.
actually.
So what I take from this is it'd be great if you could go back to the approved site plan and just make sure that the house.
trustee Nolte.
Just sitting on multi-rate sewer board. They are buying as they sell the homes. That's how they're buying their taps. They're not coming and saying, oh, I need 10 taps. They're buying one tap at a time. And so they're only doing it once the lot is sold, then they're tapping the sewer. So they're not doing any mass building.
So Fletcher, can you look into all that and just bring us an update at the April meeting?
Absolutely, I'll put them together. Give you my findings. I'll take a look at the approved plan and the most recent permits that were issued to ensure that they match.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have one other comment, if I could.
All right. I think you're good, Fletcher. Thank you.
He wasn't sure.
I wasn't either, but we're moving on. Go ahead, trustee Nolte.
Big single hall. We had 4 bidders come back. We have opened the bids and let's just say Theo Egemann's going. He's happy. I mean, the numbers are looking good. Tomorrow, we have our first meeting with one of the vendors to talk about stipulations in the contract and everything, but of all these months, we've been waiting to see how the bids came back. They came back pretty good. So,
Can you say who they are yet?
oh, I named the 4 people in my report. It's LRS, Waste Management, Priority, and Stevens were the 4 bidders.
And should we say, and just make sure, that Karen asked me if I would start attending the single hauler meetings with her and review
we
the
have
bids so that we have
Pair of eyes
two
on the
pairs of
contract.
trustee eyes. Is that okay with everybody on the board? Do you mind if I jump in on the single hauler now and look at the bids?
It's fine to be the only pair of eyes.
Is there any objections to that? I mean, they'll come before
Yes.
the board as well. I want to, yeah, no one's,
Next month, to come with a recommendation of an outline of the program and who we recommend to go with. And just have full discussion, and then we'd like a vote in May. Because if we can stay to our calendar, we're using June and July to educate and launching in August, hopefully. But there's a lot of. But they came back promising. That was
it's good.
huge.
Any questions? All right. Yep,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I just wondered what is happening with FOSS, because it seems like maybe we need another person. Is it, we need a,
So there was a person, and it's not in this report, it'll be in next month's report, that did resign from the board.
okay.
It's in my report
Okay.
that
Oh,
we're looking
okay,
for,
so
that we're
that
looking
was-
for a new
okay,
person.
I got
Yes,
caught.
Oh,
yes.
Okay, I'm
Yes.
sorry if I,
Who was the
That's okay.
person? who
I read
resigned?
it.
Deb
Deb
Melke.
Melke.
Oh, Deb Melke resigned?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I heard that Mark Teicher stepped down.
He did, so, and
yeah, I mean, we can hear next month. I think we need to start thinking about who that person is. right?
absolutely,
Yeah.
and it seems like the board is going to be working more collaboratively together and taking advantage of, understand how the process works. There were new people, it's in my report, but new people ended up getting appointed within the last year. I definitely was away from open space for a long time, so I'm still learning a lot of new that has came about. On Thursday, I'm taking a ride with Mr. Lonick to go look at the properties and go over to get up to speed. But absolutely, there is a vacant position at this time.
Yeah, we gotta think of a good person.
Yeah.
And we did, so in my report, we're asking for folks who are interested to reach out to Sam. Like I've done with many of the other committees. We'll have interviews with folks before any appointments. We actually have several vacancies that are listed in the report as well. All right, I want to move us along. Any questions about the data or performance metrics for the fire department or sheriff's department activities? All right, hearing none, we'll go to our next call for public comment on non-agenda items. All right, other issues, comments, concerns from board members or staff? I guess we'll just go down the line real quick. Trustee Sakinga? Trustee Sanders? Clerk Stambilli?
No.
Treasurer Metz?
Nope.
Trustee Abbott? Trustee Nolte? Any staff? All right. The only thing I want to say, because apparently Michelle is not going to embarrass him in the way that our treasurer embarrassed his spouse, is to say happy birthday to our deputy clerk, Nick. who got exactly what he wanted, to sit in a meeting until, 8:40. So happy birthday. Yeah. With no further business, the meeting is adjourned at 8:38.
Hey.